What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for joining me for yet another video. We have got a lot to talk about in this one, so no vlog intro, no music, no B-roll. We're getting right into it, except we do have to have a ceremonial drink of espresso. That one was really hot. I literally just made that 10 seconds ago. Whew. 10 reasons I failed as an artist. Are you ready? I really think that a whole bunch of people can get something from this. I hope that you watching can learn from my mistakes. And now that I'm where I am in the industry, a full-time producer, mix engineer, session guitarist, I do artist development myself now. I really feel like I have a grasp on what it takes to be a successful artist, or at least to get you to the place where you can make a living from your music. Whether you're a singer-songwriter, or you're in a band, or whether you're a artist developer or a producer who coaches the artists that you work with, I really think that lots of people can get something from this. So let's jump right into it. So I have been in two real serious bands earlier in my 20s. I'm no longer in my 20s, but in my early 20s, I was in two different serious bands. Even now, where I am in the industry and with what I now know, I really believe that both of those bands had actual legitimate potential. But there are some things that were fatal flaws that both bands did, and they were not the same problems for both bands. Both bands had their different sets of problems, but there were some real specific reasons why those bands didn't work and why they failed. So I want to list all these problems out. Reason number one, not completing music. One of the bands that I was in, we had this real issue where a member of the band would show up to rehearsal and they would bring a song idea, and we would, yeah, that's awesome, let's work that out. And we'd start cranking on this song, and we'd get it, somewhere between 50 and 80% of the way there. It never failed the very next rehearsal. Maybe that same member or maybe someone else would bring a different song idea, and we'd be like, oh, that's way better than that last idea we were working on at the last rehearsal. Let's focus on this. And so we would get 50 to 80% of the way through that next song. And then the next rehearsal, maybe we worked on it a little bit more, but it wasn't ever finished. And then the next rehearsal, someone would bring a new song idea. And for 2 years, this same problem continued. And at the end of 2 years, we had a whopping 4 or 5 completed songs at the end of 2 years. It came from a good place, and so I understand people that have this issue. It came from the place of we knew we could do better, and we wanted so badly to do the best that we could, to put out the best music that we possibly could. And because we wanted that so badly, we were always jumping to the very next best thing, we thought, and in an attempt to always be pursuing releasing the very best music that we could, which is a noble effort, but it was a fatal flaw, and it totally hurt us. So not completing enough music also leads me into reason number 2 that I failed as an artist. Reason number 2 is not releasing enough music. Definitely the band that I'm just referencing, we absolutely were not releasing enough music because we weren't completing enough music. The other band also had this issue for an entirely different set of reasons, but neither band released nearly enough music nearly often enough, and that was one of the main reasons why both bands failed. When I'm developing artists, this is what I say. I would like to see if you're dropping singles, really suggest that you release a single, ideally like every 4 months. At the longest, at the very longest, a single every 4 months. If you're gonna do an EP, which an EP, in my opinion, is between like 4 and 6 songs. If you're gonna do an EP, I'd really like to see people release an EP 5 or 6 months to maybe 7 or 8 months, in that window. 8 months is really pushing it to if you're only releasing EPs. If you're releasing albums, I'd really, really like to see you release an album once a year, once every year and a half, maybe. You start pushing it much longer than a year and a half, and you're just not able to create enough momentum fast enough. Like, too much time is going by between your releases, and you're not able to gain new fans fast enough. Again, this is all like give or take. This is all a balancing act. This is all strategy and playing chess, which is one of the reasons I'm really into developing artists. I really love it. But again, this depends on your personal situation. If you're on the road, 5 days a week, 48 weeks a year, then you can get more mileage out of a release and release less because you're gaining fans that way. Getting off on a rabbit hole, let's go to the next reason. Reason number 3, not thinking big enough. This is what we got wrong. The idea that we were going to have a career without extremely actively pursuing gigs, shows far away from home. And like, both bands were like Midwest bands, but we should have very actively been pursuing touring further away from home and thinking bigger nationally. And I mean like geographically bigger, and bigger in terms of status and level of income, and bigger in terms of, the seat cap of the rooms that we were playing, and like bigger in every sense. And we were too consumed with really just what was right in front of our faces, and we should have been thinking bigger, and we should have been thinking further down the road, and those were one of the reasons why both bands failed. Which leads me to reason number 4, not pushing upward hard enough. And this might sound a little weird to some of you, but in order to get bigger shows, in order to get bigger opportunities, in order to get on bigger radio stations, in order to get the opportunity with bigger managers and bigger booking agents and anything bigger, it takes this sort of constant, perpetual, intense grinding and constantly trying to push the ceiling upwards. You have to constantly just be up against that upper limit of what you're able to do, and just constantly be trying to force that limit ahead. And it takes a lot of effort. It's exhausting. You have to be relentless about it. This is one of the issues I see with a lot of artists. I see this all the time. Even artists that I've worked with, that I have produced, I've seen this time and time and time again. An artist starts to see some success. They start to get on bigger shows, and they start to get a little bit of momentum and a little bit of traction and a little bit of recognition, and people are starting to pay attention to them. And then they kind of think that they can chill out and they can kind of relax. To one level or another, they've started to make it, where they're making a living off of it, and they are playing like big, legitimately big shows, and they just kind of ease off the gas pedal a little bit. And that is absolutely not the time to relax. That is not the time to chill out. When you start seeing traction, you have to like pedal to the metal, throw down with everything that you got, trying to get more people to your show, write better songs, release higher quality music, work with bigger people in the industry, your content on your social medias, everything has to be in a constant effort to get better and to grow and to push forward and upward. There are some rare cases where maybe what you're doing as an artist is just so special that it kind of goes on its own, and maybe it doesn't need a lot of help, but that is so rare, and those instances are so few and far between, that the average artist, the average person, the average band has to be relentless in shoving that snowball up the hill. Reason number 5, not providing enough value to fans and to clubs and to promoters and venues. Now, what I mean by this is giving people a reason to follow us as fans, posting interesting content on the socials, although this was back in the day. We were in the early MySpace days back then, but nowadays, unfortunately, we're in this era where most of the time, for most artists and bands, just releasing good music is not enough. You have to give people a reason to be interested in you. You have to give them some sort of entertainment on top of your music in order to keep them constantly engaged. When it comes to like venues and promoters and clubs, depending on what level you're at, if you're at the club level, which all of us start at, how you get booked, how you get shows is by selling tickets and/or by selling beer. And that depends on your situation and the venue itself. But that's why you're there. You're there to get people through the door, to buy tickets, to sell beer. That is the point of the whole thing. And you can hate on that all you want, but it doesn't matter. That is why, that's how you get shows. And so failing to recognize how to provide value to people, fans in terms of entertainment, additional entertainment on top of the music, and clubs and promoters and other venues in terms of like the sole reason that you get shows is because you sell tickets. That's the whole point. Failing to really just look at it that clearly and that literally was a big problem for both bands, and it had a lot to do with we were just young and inexperienced and we didn't really understand it, which leads me to my next reason. But first, I want to thank you guys for watching this long, and I want to thank you for sticking with me, and I really hope that this is helping you. I would really love it. It would mean the world to me if you would hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to the subscribe, and give me a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it or if you got anything out of it, and drop me a comment if you have something to add. Drop something in the comments if you would like to. I would appreciate it, and it really helps the videos out. And go check out all the rest of the videos on the channel. There's just tons of good information on all of the rest of them. And also a reminder to hit me up on Instagram at Colt Capperrune, and check out my website, coltcapperrune.com. Feel free to hit me up on Facebook as well. Back to the reasons I'm a failure. Reason number 6. I almost did 7. Reason number 6. Not looking at this thing like it's a business. We all would like to think, and many of us are blindly actually believe this, that it is just all about the music. It is just all about the art. And, you know, the business and making money off of it, like that taints the art. And I don't necessarily disagree. Here's the issue. If you can't make a living from it, you are severely hindered by your ability to actually create and your ability to actually share your art with people on the road, because you have to have a day job. Because we all have bills. Like, you're always going to have bills. You're always going to have to pay for a place to live, unless you legitimately want to be homeless. We're always going to have a place to live. We always are going to have bills. And so not doing music full time, and I'm not saying that that's for everyone. It's not for everyone. Some people are better off and are happier people just being a hobbyist, and that's totally okay. That's totally fine. But to really move your art forward and to really get it in front of as many people as possible, and to really have the most time at your disposal to actually create your art, you have to make money from it. And therefore, what that means is you have to treat it like a business. And so one of the biggest flaws was us not looking at it that way. I'm not saying that you need to be like, you have to improve your profits every quarter, and like, I'm not saying that, but you have to look at it like a business. Every business is an investment, and you have to invest in your business. And just the general sense of business, both bands were lacking in. Reason number 7, not networking enough with other bands or artists, venues and promoters and booking agents and on, like everyone within the industry. We knew that we wanted this show or we wanted to play with this band, but neither band had a real solid grasp on the fact that you have to network your ass off. Both of the bands that I was in, we flat out failed at networking. One of the ways that I break this down is, let's say that you want to play 4 dates a year. Now, realistically, in a tour kind of situation, you can only really play an area maybe once every 6 months. Maybe in the very early days, you can play a specific area a little bit more often. But as more people know who you are, and as you can bring more people to a specific venue in a specific city, you have to spread those shows out. And so let's say that you can only play each market once every 6 months. So if you want to play 4 shows a week, that means you need 208 dates a year to stay legitimately busy. Let's say that you play every market once every 6 months. So that means 104 different cities, or 104 different markets, 104 different promoters, 104 different venues, 104 different clubs. However you want to break this down at whatever level it is that you're at, you need 104 relationships, legitimate relationships, people you actually work with in order to pull this off. This is something that I've spoke about in some earlier videos on my channel, but I don't really ever hear people break it down that way. When you really break it down, you're like, oh, I need to know 104 different clubs or 104 different promoters or whatever your number is. That really puts it in perspective how hard you need to go in building relationships and what it really takes to actually make this work. Not focusing on building enough relationships, and also not realistically understanding the quantity of relationships you actually have to have in order to make this work. It was a fatal flaw for both bands. Reason number 8, not having a good enough recording. You should have a product that's capable of taking you to the place you want to go within your career. I like to use this example about racing. Music is not a competition. This music industry thing is not a competition. Your music career is not a competition with other artists. But the part of racing that I like to compare this to is, let's say that you want to win a Formula One race. Well, you can't show up with a 1992 Honda Civic because you won't even be allowed in the race. Not only could you obviously not win, you literally won't be even allowed in the race. The idea is that if you want to win a Formula One race, you have to have a Formula One car that's capable of competing. Now again, music's not a competition. I even have a whole video on that earlier in this channel, but if you want to be on the radio, you want to expand your career, and you want to go places with your music, you have to have a product, a recording, a production that is capable of allowing you to go there. There is a whole slew of artistic things that can happen within music that I'm not talking about top 40 music necessarily. What I'm talking about is the product that you have has to be capable of taking you wherever it is that you want to go. That was one of the things that was a huge reason why we failed. Part of the reason is because it's an investment. Remember, we were talking about how this is a business. We didn't look at it like it was a business, and so we also didn't view it as an investment. We had to invest in starting our business. I produced our first album, which was the first album I ever produced, actually, in one of the bands, and me and the bass player of the other band were co-owners in a studio, because I was already doing this studio thing as well. For what we were at, like, they both turned out great. For local or regional bands, the products were fine. What we didn't realize at the time is that if both bands, the goal for both bands was to tour the country and be top 40 on the rock charts on Billboard. That was the goal for both bands. And what we didn't realize is in both scenarios, we were not capable of doing it ourselves. And so we didn't have a product that was capable of taking us to that place. And so we had lost the race, so to speak, before it even began. We weren't capable of competing even. And again, not a competition, but it's the only way that I really know how to frame this. And I think that this is one of the single biggest reasons why both bands failed. And I really, really, truly believe that had we went to a producer that was successful in the genre and in the thing that we wanted to do, both bands would have had way more potential and would have went way, way further. Which brings me to reason number 9, why I failed as an artist. It's really difficult, especially in today's day and age, where you really do have to do so much of this yourself, especially in the beginning stages. You have to be your own manager. You have to book your own shows. You have to be your own PR and run your own social media, and like, you have to do so many things and do them well, do them at a high level in order to make it in this music thing today. It's really difficult as an artist who's up and coming to know where to draw the line. But I think this is a really important thing, being able to identify what things you should do yourself and knowing exactly when to bring in a legitimate heavy hitter in that thing. The ability to identify the difference between things you should do on your own and things you should bring someone else in on, I think that is one of the most important things in terms of being a successful artist. We're gonna say top 2 reasons why both of my bands failed back in the day. There's a couple things that I would really suggest, and this has nothing to do with me being a producer, but I do develop artists and I am legitimately in the music industry, and I feel like I have a really good handle on what it takes to actually make a career out of this at this point, and I have helped create many careers over the years at this point. There are a few things that I feel like you should not skimp on. The first thing, not the music production actually, the first thing is your photos. When you are going after shows and when you are going after any sort of opportunities for you as an artist or your band, the first thing anyone's gonna do is they're gonna look at your website or your EPK. It's the very first thing they're gonna do, or your socials, but usually, one of those 3. If your photos, specifically the photos that you're using to push yourself as an artist for your album cover, your album photos, or on your EPK or on your website, if your photos aren't jaw-dropping, most people within the industry won't even look at your music. They won't even consider taking a listen to your music, because if you don't care enough to have ridiculously cool photos, just because I'm saying jaw-dropping photos, that doesn't necessarily mean magazine cover worthy photos. It has to be appropriate for what you're after. But if you don't have shockingly good photos that are appropriate for what it is that you do, most people in the industry won't even listen to your music. They won't even give you the opportunity to show them how your music sounds or that you're worthy of taking a listen to. Same with music videos. We look at video content all day, every day. You're looking at it right now. We watch TV, and also we see things with our actual eyes, obviously, all day, every day. And so visually, this is why photos is like one of the most important things to me, and why video is one of the second most important things, is because visually, people can instantly identify a budget or an inappropriate for what it is that you're trying to do visual element, music video or photos. People can instantly identify that, and they may not even know why. They may have no idea why, but subconsciously, their impression of you as an artist or as a band is much less serious if the visuals that you're showing someone is not appropriate for what it is that you're trying to accomplish, for the place that you're trying to go within your career. And then thirdly is the production, you know, the actual recording, the mix, the performances, obviously the performances on the record, and obviously the songs. I'm not trying to take away from the songs. The songs have to be great. Those are really the three categories where I really suggest people not try to do this themselves. And furthermore, what I really suggest people do is hire people that have already done successful things within the genre or subgenre that you yourself are. You as an artist, me as a producer even, I'm not always capable of looking at a photo and really identifying if the photo is capable of taking you somewhere, because I'm not a photographer, and furthermore, I have not shot albums and promo photos for successful artists. That's not my thing. It's not what I do. I produce music, and I do produce music for successful artists who have real careers. You want to give yourself the best chance of success possible, and so hire the people who are doing the successful things, and really that comes down, in my opinion, to photos, video, and music production. You will drastically increase your chances of success if you find, one, the right person, because they have to be the right person, and sometimes the right person is not the most successful person, but most of the time, if you hire the right person who consistently works with successful people within the genre or subgenre that you are in or trying to be in, your chances for success go up drastically. Sorry that was a long ramble on that one, but I'm really passionate about that one, and it's one of the main reasons why I see artists just not ever get off the ground, ever. And I'm talking in terms of a career in music here, not just in terms of being able to create music and play some shows. And I'm talking in terms of real successful artists that do this for a living. This is one of the reasons that most artists get wrong and that keeps them from doing this for a living. Reason number 10 is thinking that a manager or a label or a booking agent would solve our problems for us. We weren't willing to put in the effort to push ourselves to a bigger place. And we just kind of thought, and I see this constantly, there's a whole video on how to get a booking agent and a manager earlier on this channel that you can go check out. We just always thought to ourselves, if we just had a manager, if we just had a really great booking agent, if we could just get a record deal, we thought these things, and we thought that it would solve our problems for us. And I see this stuff constantly posted on Facebook and on Instagram, people wanting a manager, wanting a booking agent, but they want it because they're not capable of taking themselves further than they currently are. They don't know how, or they're not willing to put in the effort or the time. And they just think that a manager or a booking agent or a record deal is going to just solve all their problems for you. And like I said in the other video, nothing could be further from the truth. A manager, a booking agent, a record label, they do not solve your problems for you. that about does it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you sticking with me to the end. That was probably kind of a long video, and I did my best to ramble as little as possible, but I really appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you sticking out to the end. Again, if you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe and the little bell icon next to the subscribe, and give me a thumbs up, drop me a comment, hit me up on Instagram at Colt Capperrune, hit me up on my website, coltcapperrune.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.